Now in this particular topic, we are going to discuss about anonymous functions. An anonymous function in Python is a function without a name. Sounds confusing? In the last topic, we discussed about defining a function name when you are defining a user-built function. But here, I'm talking about a function without a name. Yes, Python gives you that option to create a function without a name too. Let's understand that better. So when you want to invoke immediately or stored in a variable, you can actually trigger an anonymous function. So anonymous functions are also called as a Lambda functions. The syntax is very simple. Lambda parameters colon expression. That is, you are saying that I am going to pass these parameters which are going to be substituted in this expression. There is no name to this function, so you're not giving the function name. You're just directly saying that it's Lambda. That means it's an anonymous function. These parameters, whatever I'm giving, please substitute in the expression. That's what I'm calling it out as. Okay. So anonymous functions, there are three values. When you want to define a Lambda function, you use three values to define it. So you use the Lambda keyword to begin with. So Lambda is the key for you to recognize anonymous functions. Then it is followed by one or too many parameters. So 1, 2, 3, it can be n number of parameters, you can pass it across. That's the second part of the Lambda function. The third one is the expression. What is the logic that you want to execute by passing these parameters? So you're defining the expression there. And this is the part of the code that gets executed or returned based on the input parameters that you have set across. So the parameters and the expression are usually separated by a colon. This is the structure of anonymous functions. So take this example. Add underscore numbers. Here I'm consciously defining a name. Okay, you can even do it without the name. Add underscore name numbers is equal to lambda a comma b colon a plus b. Can you guess the parameters in this one? Yes, you guessed it right. A and b are the two parameters. Is there a name to this function? There is no name to this function when you are defining on the right side, that is when you are using lambda. But the outcome of this, you are passing it to a particular variable called as add underscore numbers. So in a way it is called as it is a function name that you have given there on the left side. Now what is the expression that you are doing? A plus b. That means any numbers, any parameters that are coming in, you are just going to add it and then return it. Take this example. Print add comma numbers 2 comma 3. So what will it return? It will print 5. Because add underscore numbers will trigger this particular function. 2 and 3 are sent as parameters. The expression a plus b is getting executed. So 2 plus 3 is getting executed. 5 is the answer. The 5 value is returned and that 5 value is getting printed. So this is simple Lambda anonymous function. This is how it is executed. I hope you're able to understand the example. So we created a Lambda function with two parameters a and b. The function returns the sum of the parameters, that is a plus b. The function did not have a name. We just assigned the Lambda function to a variable called add underscore numbers so that we can easily invoke the function through the variable. That's the only purpose of defining add underscore numbers. Otherwise, Lambda ensures that it is an anonymous function without a name. Okay, so I hope you are able to understand this anonymous functions, Lambda functions. You may wonder, what is the difference between Lambda and the regular functions that we discussed earlier? On one side, Lambda as a function, you are defining it using the keyword Lambda. So how do you define the regular function? You use the def keyword, def. That's the keyword that you're using to define a normal function. It can be written in one line, Lambda function. That's the advantage of Lambda function. But when you talk about the regular function, you can use multiple lines of code, and usually you write it with multiple lines of code because the first line is more about defining the function name then you write the body of the function, then you write the return function. So there are multiple lines of code. Writing it in one line of code is a challenge. No return statement is required in Lambda, the anonymous function, but here you definitely need a return statement on the regular function side. And Lambda can be triggered anonymously. That's what by design, isn't it? It's an anonymous function, so you don't need a name for it. But here regular function, you need a name. You may wonder what makes a difference? Think of the memory aspect. Something with a name, automatically the memory is assigned. Something without a name, just a RAM is used across to execute and deliver. There lies the foundational difference. So when do you go for Lambda? When do you go for regular functions? You can use a Lambda function when you need a function that will be used just once. When you need a function only once, you don't need to give a name for it. You just use it and the purpose is solved. But when you are going to use some function regularly, as I was telling you, like Celsius to Fahrenheit, you are going to trigger it every time you want to convert Celsius to Fahrenheit. Then you need to define a function name and you are going to trigger that function name with passing input parameters. There lies the difference. You will use Lambda when you need a function that should be invoked immediately. Okay, so Lambda, that is the advantage, invoking it immediately. That's not the case with the regular function. I hope you have understood what Lambda anonymous function is all about. Explore more, read more about it,